how do you think the election in Georgia would have played out, or how do you think the election in Georgia next year will play out if the Republican Party is successful in throwing 364,000 Georgia voters, largely people of color, off the voting rolls? You know, sort of a reprise or a replay of what they did back when Stacey Abrams was on the ballot against Brian Kemp, and he was Secretary of State, and he pulled a whole pile of people off the voting rolls. Well, they're up to their old tricks again, and our buddy Greg Palast is all over it. The investigative journalist, his latest book, How Trump Stole 2020. GregPalast.com is the website, and Greg_Palast his Twitter handle. And I will be pushing, after we get off the air this afternoon, I will be pushing this out, this article that Greg wrote and this video clip that you're about to see, to all of our readers over at for the Thom Hartmann newsletter and HartmannReport.com. Greg, welcome back. Tell us about this video that Nate is going to play here in just a moment. What is this? Where did it come from? Set it up.
Get ready for insane. We have Republican operatives, 88 of them in Georgia, who have challenged, are you ready for this, 364,000 voters, saying that their votes, when they mail them in or they show up to vote, can't be counted. I kid you not. This is a list that these Georgia Republicans have gotten from a group out of Texas named True the Vote. They are saying that these people, 250,000 voters, are felon voters voting illegally from out of their counties. Well, we called hundreds of them. The Palast Fund investigators called hundreds of these voters. We spoke to them. They said, here I am. I'm in Cobb County. I'm in Fulton, whatever. We haven't moved anywhere. But they're being challenged.
And we're not felons.
Yeah, they're not felon voters. It's just people. For example, we had a woman, Tamara Horn, who you'll see. She lost her job, had to move out of her home, lost her home, moved in with her relatives down the street. She's still in Cobb County, a suburb of Atlanta, but she was challenged by the woman that's Marjorie Taylor Greene's candidate for vice chair of the Republican Party of Georgia. She'll probably win. She's a GOP official. She personally, are you ready for this, Tom? She personally challenged 32,000 voters, saying that she personally had knowledge that these voters were illegal, 32,000. And under the new Georgia law, SB 202, their ballots cannot count unless they go into the county offices, prove they are who they are, they live where they live. It's a very nice,
wait a minute.
It's a really nice Jim Crow operation.
As of now, this isn't a possible law. This is a law that's already passed. And under this law, all 32,000 of the people that this woman, who we're going to see in just a second, challenged, will not have their votes count unless they show up in person after the election at the Secretary of State's office and say, hey, I'm really me? Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
If they want to take off a day of work, if they even find out that they've been challenged. Most of the people that we spoke to, in fact, everyone we spoke to said, I didn't know I was going to have my ballot thrown out. I spoke to Guy Storm Saul. I mean, he's like livid. These are legal voters, but the GOP is running this campaign. Again, this is under the new law passed in March, SB 202. And I got to tell you, True the Vote out of Texas, which is backed by billionaire Bradley family out of Milwaukee, they aren't going to be satisfied with bending the election in Georgia. They're going to take this to Wisconsin, Texas, North Carolina, and beyond.
Michigan, Pennsylvania.
Works.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so let's, as they say in the television business, and radio business, let's roll the tape. Here is Greg Palast down in Florida with what's her name again?
Her name is Pam Reardon of Georgia. She is a GOP official in Cobb County, which is Atlanta suburb.
Okay, here we go.
Marietta, Georgia.
We're about to meet with a GOP official who says that she has personal knowledge that 32,000 people are voting illegally in this county.
So my name is Pamela Reardon. I am currently 6th District Committee woman to the state party. I know for sure voters do not live here.
Altogether, Reardon and her cronies are challenging 364,000 citizens' right to vote.
This year, Georgia's GOP-controlled legislature passed a new law saying you can challenge an unlimited number of voters. Do you know this woman? Do you recognize that woman?
Not offhand. I don't.
Okay, you never spoke to her?
No.
What about this guy and his wife on his honeymoon? Do you recognize that man?
No.
So you didn't call him, but you challenged his right to vote or have his ballot challenged.
Sir, get out of my house.
Okay, I will get out of your house.
ACLU of Georgia attorney Rahul Garabadu.
The challenge statute didn't ever contemplate someone coming to town and challenging hundreds of thousands of voters at one time. This, in our view, was an abuse of that statute. That doesn't mean that you get to print out reams and reams of Excel spreadsheets and just, levy a charge against thousands of people that you don't even know and get them, removed off the rolls.
The 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act makes voter intimidation a crime.
Imagine using the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871.
Here is NAACP lawyer Gerald A. Griggs.
It gets real when you get arrested. It gets real.
You heard of the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871?
I'm from Canada.
So you don't know the Ku Klux Klan law?
I'm from Canada.
Clearly you don't know Georgia law. He's a legal voter.
I got my right to vote in '94.
Okay,
so I don't like people voting illegally. Get out of my house now.
I shall get out of your house
Before
now.
I throw you.
And you are sure that this is your legal voting address?
You are.
Georgia, divided down the middle, and this civil war ain't over. This is Greg Palast in Georgia, reporting.
That's mind-boggling, Greg. So, which raises the question, if all I have to do to prevent a legal Georgia voter's vote from being counted, or to force them to do two steps. Number one, go in and vote, and then a few days later go show up at the county recorder's office or the Secretary of State's office and prove that they're a, quote, legal voter. If that's all I have to do, and you can do that in batches of in the case of this woman, over 30,000, and in the case of these this whole group of Republicans, 364,000 Georgia voters. If that's all it takes, why don't we compile a list of registered Republicans in Georgia and challenge their votes?
Because it's against the law, Tom. It's the Ku Klux Klan of 1871. The NAACP was really freaked out, and so was the ACLU when I said that this was happening. They thought they'd killed it off, by the way, in December. But now it's back under the new law, under SB 202. They're quite, you go to jail for this. In fact, that's one of the things I asked this woman. I said, you understand, under Ku Klux Klan law, you can go to jail, you can be sued. No, we don't do it. Democrats, I think, don't do it because it's against the law. You go to jail if the law is enforced.
Right, but do you think Brian Kemp is going to enforce that law against a Republican state official?
Okay, it's not going to happen in Georgia. It's got to be the feds. Merrick Garland has now said he's going to begin prosecuting these cases. Now that the ACLU and NAACP have been informed, they are very upset. You watch for action being taken, but more important, we have to expose this. And by the way, I'll be on Brian Ross Investigates tonight to go further into this. But let me tell you.
On MSNBC.
Yeah, and on the NBC stream. And what we have to do is we have to bust this thing right now. True the Vote is an organization out of Texas which came up with these bogus lists. And I'm very concerned that it will not only be Georgia, but it will spread to the rest of the country. But it's very important that we begin prosecuting people for willy-nilly, taking 1/3 people and telling them, you aren't who you are. This woman admitted that she never spoke to not one single person that she challenged. The Georgia head of the Cobb County GOP, 16,000 more voters in just that county. They're upset that it went for Biden.
So how is True the Vote coming up with this list of 364,000 Georgian voters that should be purged? Are they doing what Jeb Bush did back in the 2000 election in Florida? I mean, this is a story that you broke for the BBC in 2000, for God's sake, where you went in and discovered that he had thrown, 90,000 African-Americans off the voting rolls just weeks before the election so that his brother could steal it with a 536 vote margin?
Exactly, but this is the Florida game, which was very effective. People don't understand that the real impediment to voting is erasing people's registration. And in this case, it goes further. It says even if you've mailed in your ballot, even if you show up to vote, your ballot can't be counted. And this is devastating if this goes through. Now, again, it's the purge game that was played by Jeb Bush, that was played in Ohio in 2004. And, of course, I exposed this in 2018 when the race was stolen by Brian Kemp against Stacey Abrams. This is now, but what's weird, what's horrible about this is privatizing the purge list system. Even the state of Georgia has just announced it's removing 102,000 voters. Now, I know that list is phony as a $3 bill, but this is 3 times the state list, a private organization saying you can't vote. It's just unbelievable.
So are they pulling these? Are they pulling like a list of Texas felons and comparing it with the Georgia voter list? Is that how they're coming up with these names?
They're claiming that they got postal change of address information from the post office, but just so you know, we checked with the experts at the post office, and they said, no way, this is ridiculous. And as you know, some people, just if you move down the street, if you move within your county, you don't lose your vote. If you had a temporary change of address due to COVID, you don't lose your vote. But most of these are just, it's an error by the, it's just wrong.
I don't think this is an error, Greg.
Yeah. I mean, well, when I say an error,
this is a
look,
scam.
It's a very convenient error, removing a lot of black people, a lot of low-income people, a lot of people of color. Quick
question for you, because we're going to hit a break here in a second. But last night on MSNBC, one of the shows, I don't recall if it was Chris Hayes or Rachel Maddow, kind of debunked the fact, the notion that John Kerry actually won in 2004 and George W. Bush lost, and that Ohio was the linchpin state. My recollection was that the objection to Ken Blackwell, the Secretary of State, who is African-American, strangely enough, was that he threw a whole bunch of black people off the voting rolls just before the election, and that was one of the ways that he rigged the election. That was not mentioned on MSNBC last night. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correctly. I did an article, an investigation. The Guardian asked me to investigate. What we found out is that there was a mass purge of voters, which I have then described in Rolling Stone. But I also found that there was what we call spoilage of votes, discounting people's ballots. And this challenge that's happening will go in that pile called the spoiled votes. You don't spoil votes by leaving them out of the fridge. It's by someone challenging a vote. And we never talk about that. About 3 million votes are simply not counted in each presidential election because of these challenges. This is going to be accelerated by this right-wing group.
Right, and that's just the margin that the Republicans need. If they can just slice off a few thousand Democrats here and a few thousand there, then they can win elections. It's mind-boggling. Greg Palast.
Knocks in trouble.
There you go. GregPalast.com, Greg_Palast on Twitter. Check it out. Greg, thanks for dropping by. It's always great talking with you, my friend.